Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I welcome you all at the School Leadership Summit South India, which is being organized by ELETS Technomedia Private Limited in association with Digital Learning Magazine.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Welcome, ma'am. So we are now starting our panel discussion number 3 for this today's conference. So the theme of this session is tackling the innovation in virtual revolution of education to engage students. And in this session, we'll have 5 panelists, and 3 out of 5 have joined. I believe 2 are joining shortly. My team at the back end, please check if they are about to join, because we should start the panel discussion on time.
Yes, sir. Yeah, they are joining.
Okay. So in this session, I welcome first of all Dr. Sarada Chandrasekharan, Academic Director, Whitefield Global School, Bangalore. Madam Shanti Menon, Founder Principal, Dean's Academy, Bangalore. Meghna Munsuri, Founder and Correspondent, Fountainhead Global School, Hyderabad. Madam Anjali Razdan, Advisor Education, GT Goenka School, Hyderabad. Former Director Academics, Solan Public School, Solan, Hyderabad.
There's a mix-up. I am not former director. I'm right now the director academics.
I'm sorry.
Solan Public School and not GT Goenka. Please make the correction. Yeah.
Okay. I have got the wrong information then. I'm so sorry. So you are Director Academics, Solan Public School, Solan, Hyderabad. And we also have with us Mr. Shrikant. He's Director of Kennedy School, Next Gen Kids International School, Guntur. So as the theme of the session is tackling the innovation in virtual revolution of education to engage students. To begin the discussion, we'll have opening remarks from all of you for 5 minutes. Then we will move on to the discussion. I'll request, we'll begin the discussion with the opening remarks by Madam Anjali Razdan. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, as the topic suggests, this is a revolution of all sorts, digital, mental, psychological, so-called, because of COVID-19. But it is a revolution in a sense. There's a paradigm shift in the entire process of education. In fact, the entire world has changed for a lot of reasons in all the domains of world. But education is one particular medium, which I think is a bedrock of all professions, is a bedrock of all careers. And therefore, this medium has also gone for a complete change. And the entire thing which we used to have contacts earlier, children coming in and all, that has also definitely gone for a change. But I must say that the change is not for the worse, is for the better. And a lot of things are going to come up with the new education policy as well. So combined together, to me, it's a very progressive change. And let's wait and watch what happens as we unwind the whole process. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Madam Shanti Menon, over to you.
Thank you for this opportunity. Well, my thought on this whole change towards virtual revolution is, it's not today. It started maybe a decade ago when all of us moved on to all our work into digital mediums, starting with, especially in school education. And I will specifically speak in school education because I'm not very familiar with higher education, but it will be similar across the spectrum of educational societies kind of thing. So starting from the administrative to the teaching, the pedagogical practices, to the learning aspect, to assessment, to feedback, all of this has gone digital today. The biggest takeaway from that is that it saves a lot of time. 2 is there is accuracy in documentation. 3 is the instant feedback and feedback mechanism that we have. The 4th thing, and I think that is the most critical thing, especially in a student's life, is better learning experiences, thanks to the digital world coming into their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Srikanth, your views. Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. So I feel this COVID has given a wonderful opportunity in the sense that adoption of technology has become a kind of mandate. Previously, it is all like a kind of choice. So most of the parents, students, even in the remote places, are now more digitally coming together. So definitely digital education would provide the quality if that is utilized in the right way. And of course, more towards the technology, the artificial intelligence, the machine learning. So
augmented not able to hear you properly, Mr. Srikanth.
Definitely come forward. Hello?
Hello, yeah. Continue, yeah. Now you are audible enough.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I think all the artificial intelligence, machine learning, augmented reality, all these things would come into the hands of the teachers and of course for the benefit of the child in the near future. And I feel this COVID period has given time. I mean, it would have probably come after 5 to 10 years, but this has come much ahead than what is probably expected in the world. Yeah, that's my opening.
Yes, thank you. Yep. So now we have also been joined by two other panelists of this session. So I welcome Dr. Sarada Chandrasekharan, Academic Director, Whitefield Global School, Bangalore. And we have also been joined by Madam Meghna, founder and correspondent, Fountainhead Global School, Hyderabad. Welcome. So we asked Dr. Sarada to please give opening remarks about the topic of the session, that is tackling the innovation in virtual revolution of education to engage students. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Arpit Gupta. Am I audible?
Yeah, madam, you are audible.
Yeah. Very good afternoon to one and all present here. Indeed, if the same question was asked in the month of March, we would have had a different kind of an answer. If at all in March they have asked, we would have said no chance, no way. Because here I think of a story which has come to my mind when I thought of this topic. Long ago, two friends were arguing with each other, and for some reason they have come to one conclusion. They will challenge each other that whoever can stay without looking at a light in a complete dark night in a graveyard, then they will be the most courageous person. So first the person goes there and he stays there whole night. Next day morning he comes out. The friend asked that how could you stay there? He said that I started looking only at the light which is lit almost on the other side of the graveyard in a small hut or wherever. So whole night I was looking at that so that I could stay there. So this man says that it is cheating. I told you to stay in darkness, but you saw the light, so you have lost it. So you have to give me the feast. So this friend who was in graveyard, he said, okay, come tomorrow for feast. Next day when this friend goes to other friend's house, he finds that a big pot will be hung from the roof and under the pot will be one candle. And this, he says, okay, is the feast ready? This friend says, feast is getting ready. Did you see? It is just getting cooked. Then this man says, with the candle light. Then he says, yeah, if I can get the light and the courage from looking at one small light, which is almost 2 kilometers away from me, then why can't the candlelight cook the feast for you? This was the situation in the month of March for all of us, that virtual field is nothing which can happen, like you cannot take to virtual field. But came the pandemic. So the most comfortable wings have been cut for us. Then we all took to the virtuality. When we took to virtual, we also evolved a lot. Initially, many of the schools started only with the video recordings, maybe for a couple of days, couple of weeks, for some people, couple of months. People like us, maybe in 2-3 days, we switched over to MS Teams. Then we understood that this particular screen is standing between us and the children. So we cannot go with a normal talk, neither we can use the PPT alone. We should go beyond it to make the experiential learning happen. We should make it beyond this experiential learning, project-based learning happening. We should make beyond project-based experiential learning and completely the child to have maybe that augmented learning, whatever, and to put it into multiple ways. Then we understood that we have to make it most innovative and creative. Normally, when we are pushed to corner, only our creativity comes out. So the many innovative methodologies have come up. We understood what is the flipped classrooms. We have understood that what is that different ways and means of using this kind of a screen to make the children learn more innovatively. So we understood that the kitchen can become one of the major fantastic experimental tool. We also understood that the whole house has quite a lot of things to be used for learning. These all things came as a natural things for the teacher to use, whereas then we just went into Google. We found multiple apps which can help the child to learn. So innovative methods came only when we were pushed to corner, and today we became masters in looking at the virtual learning. And I do not know, maybe after some time, if we ask the teacher to come back to original learning, the teacher may feel like fish out of water, because the teacher is enjoying this kind of a complete virtual learning using multiple modes. So yes, there are many innovative methods have come, whether you talk about flipped classrooms, whether you talk about AR, whether you talk about AI, and whether you talk about GeoGebras, you talk about Kahoot for assessments, to Quizlets, to Padlet. Many things came apart from this breakout rooms. Now everybody has got into breakout rooms. Everybody is getting into collaborative learning. And so the innovations have got in only when we are pushed to corner, but we became very innovative. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well explained. I was expecting a small statement by you, but you actually explained and set the tone of the discussion. So I'll just take quickly a remark on the topic by Madam Meghna Mansoori. Over to you, Madam.
Namaste and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk about one of my favorite topics. Not now, but for some time now, actually. So when we say innovative learning online, I think it started quite a while ago, as Shanti ma'am was mentioning, like, more than 10 years, a decade ago, where when you look at the Gen Y or the Generation Z, they always looked up to learning through digital media. As schools, I understand that we had limitations in trying to bring these things to the school, because at times that it could be lack of the infrastructure that we had as part of our schooling education, or like, these norms that parents would have, like, I don't want my child to be learning from a screen. So these are certain limitations that we had during before pandemic, I can say, which because, until unless, as ma'am was mentioning, that until unless you are not pushed to a corner, you will not accept the change, or things like that. Yes, I am happy that even schools as an educational institutions are also being part of this entire change. And definitely, who is a better person than a teacher to convert this technology into more experiential for the students in very short span of time. I would say, like, in spite of all these teachers who are not having their expertise in this particular line, on the technical line, also took it up so well. And I am sure this is going to stay here and it's going to evolve much more better now that, like, it's not just the technical side which is evolved. It's like technical side with the teaching and learning methodologies put together. We are going to see more and more innovative solutions which are available. Previously, like as our school, we used to take what is available online, and then we used to inculcate that as part of a teaching process. Flipped classrooms and all these things were part of our regular classes. Now that we are just doing it online, that's the only difference that we are looking at currently. But I am so happy that, we have more people joining in the family of innovation online, and definitely, yeah, this is here to stay. But I would also wanted to stress on, like, there's nothing that can replace the actual school environment as such. So that's not going to be replaced with any kind of a technology, no matter how. But yes, technology is going to play, or innovative methodologies of teaching is going to play a major role in learning process from here on.
Thank you. So all the panelists have talked about innovations. They have also stressed on the need of implementing technologies in this new normal where we are living in currently. So I'll go back to Madam Anjali with a question. When we are talking about implementing technology, so it is usually seen that students and younger generation is quite active in learning and adopting these technologies, mobile apps. When we are talking about teaching through AI and AR in classroom, what has been your experience in your institution, or what do you see when you are talking to your friends in other institutions? So what is the adoption rate of technology, and how has been the experience of teachers in the different and changed education world now? You are not audible, madam. No, ma'am, I'm not able to hear you. My technical team, please help Anjali, madam. So by the time my technical team helps Anjali madam to bring again with her voice. So I'll ask the same question to Madam Shanti Menon now. Over to you, madam.
The experience has been excellent. We had the teachers adapting very easily. They,
Hello?
so initially what happened is everybody is used to, I think I'm on two devices. Let me just switch it off. Sorry. So there is still an echo. It's not got anything to do with me, I think.
Yeah, that's because you are logged into two devices, ma'am.
Yeah, I put off my other device.
We can still see you there.
Okay, it's okay now. Then I think I'll just go on. So essentially, initially the teachers did find the situation a little scary. The whole aspect of, doing all of it. So ours is not a school which doesn't have technology. Like I said, more than a decade ago, I moved completely online. Everything is online, from communications to planning of lessons to assessments to feedback. Everything is online for us. We are pretty much paperless in that sense. But when it came to the fact that they have to transact everything through online classrooms, like Ms. Meghna said, their whole foot just got shaken up. The ground got shaken up for them. It took them possibly about a week or so to adapt. Again, fortunately, the generation of teachers is an adaptable lot, and I guess a kind of lot who enjoy the new learning and the new empowerment. Within a week, we got online. Ours was the first school in the whole of the city of Bangalore which was impacted by COVID, and we were the first to close. But we were the first to start online classes too in the whole city. Started straight off on the 13th of March. So the teachers adapted quickly. We started online classes. The best thing was the children adapted far faster. And finally, the children were the teachers' teachers in terms of how to use technology. Today, what has happened is the teachers feel empowered. The teachers feel there has been a certain kind of growth in their aspect of teaching, because today they bring in a lot more into the teaching. if you transport them into a classroom today, while there would be an initial, kind of gap for them and a kind of resistance to continue physical teaching, today they will be able to bring in a lot more. All of the AI and AR that they have been using while they are online, they're going to be able to bring it into the classroom. So I think the whole atmosphere has been very positive in that sense. The only aspect is the touch and feel of actually interacting with the children, which is the most critical aspect of a school. Learning is all available on the net. The teacher is not the one to transact that. But there are minute nuances that a teacher brings into the classroom. The socio-emotional touch, the psychological touch, the kind of growth touch that every teacher brings in. That is something that we're missing being able to do wholeheartedly. So while there is only that much you can actually monitor on a screen, I mean, you can only monitor 9 children or maximum about 14 children on a screen or 12 children on a screen if you're doing Zoom. It's not easy to figure out what that child's learning is in terms of the emotional status of that child at that point. And this is a critical aspect that most teachers are finding missing and most teachers finding as a hindrance to their going forward. But of course, there is a lot more, just like Dr. Sharda talked about, they're able to use technology to bring in collaborations, teamwork, get all kinds of projects. There's extension of the topics that they're being learning. The whole movement of, teacher being a teacher who is, I teach and you learn aspect is closed. It's completely closed. Today it's about, she's facilitating the child from, exploring more and more of their learning. And I think that is the best part of what is happening online. So the other aspect is I have a whole lot of special children in my classrooms across both the campuses and the 4 campuses that I run. Those children have had huge benefits with this, especially the children with dyslexia, children with ADHD. We find that they're far more engaged with their learning. Their progress is far better. So in that sense, I think this has been a boon for those kind of children too. And the children who are the more reticent in class, today they are a faceless person there in the classroom. They're able to talk to the teacher. While in an open classroom, they're intimidated by the louder noises of the children who like to make noise in class. So these are a few experiences that I think, the positive experiences that I think the whole aspect has brought about, at least in my schools.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I'll go back to Anjali, ma'am, with the same question. In addition to the question, I'll ask one more thing. So there was a generation who they didn't see the school buildings. Then came the generation, they saw the brick and mortar schools. And now we are seeing the teaching learning process happening virtually. So how this virtual revolution will change the world of education? What do you feel?
Yes. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. You are very much audible, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry, I had to, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? Because I was just trying to get from one mode to the other. Sorry for this, I don't know. We're talking about technology and look what's happening. I request you just give me, share the question again, please.
Yeah. So I was just trying to understand your point of view about the generations, those who didn't see the school, they used to study in open. There were no buildings. Then came the school buildings, big infrastructure, and now everything is online. You can study from anywhere. So how this virtual revolution will change the whole education world?
I think if you're talking about those who are studying under the trees, that was not only me, I'm pretty old by all standards, but that was my grandmother's, generation. So it's not that much back that they were studying under the trees. But what I'm 40 years in this scenario of education all across Mumbai, Kolkata, and Hyderabad. what I've seen, I'll tell you my personal experience of how an evolution has taken place, because I used to find kids when I was in Mumbai and in Kolkata, the kids would come for nursery admissions and, for little kindergarten classes. And then, what, they would cry. I'm talking about a metamorphosis. Then they would cry and cry and cry for months. And we had to put all our teaching staff and all the force to see that these kids are, consoled, and teachers would jump around and everything. It's a very difficult thing to, hold kindergarten kids. I would say they're the best teachers, according to me, in the world. So we would do that and do that for months. And then after that, the kids would come to normal and adjust. Years passed, and 20 years before, they would cry for 15 days or so, and then, get back to normal. What is the scenario now? You will laugh. They don't cry now. The kids who are entry point kindergartens and all, they don't cry. They make the teachers cry right now. Trust me. This is the evolution of humanity, human, kind. And we do not know how this has happened. But over the years, maybe technology has overtaken. The children are born in that era where the technology is flowing. People of my generation, there may be Dr. Sharda, maybe anybody else who is, our generation, the rest of you are pretty young. You are born when the technology is flowing in that direction. We are born when we had to go in the opposite direction of technology flow. You understand? So we flew against the current, and you're flowing with the current. So there's a lot of difference when you are flowing with the current. So these kids have taken to technology as fish takes to water. Trust me. And the people who are the implementers of that technology, meaning our task force, our warriors, our teachers, it's a difficult task for them to adapt to technology. Now, I'm not talking about 2 elite schools or 15 elite schools. No, I'm talking generally all over the country. There are urban areas and there are rural areas and there are all kinds of schools everywhere. On an average, I'm talking, it is a task for the teachers. It took them a long time to get into the flow of technology. When the school would boast earlier that, we have digital boards and we are technologically savvy schools, that was the only thing they could boast of. And let me tell you, what was the digital board doing? There was a big digital board in the classrooms, and the teacher would come, she would teach, and then she would put this digital board on with the digital lesson on. And you know what would happen? Let us see, whatever is happening, the teacher is also seeing it for the first time as the kids are seeing. So everybody is watching a movie. This was usage of technology, I would say even pre-COVID times. Well, as they would put up big advertisements saying they are a technologically savvy school. Is this what was technology? And is this the way it was to be used? That you have to on the switch and off it, and then you use technology. You see, you define so much. No, not at all. It was a picture, a movie going on, and everybody was watching it, including the teacher, and we call it that. But now, this is, as I told you in my opening remarks, it's a paradigm shift of mind, body, education. Everything has changed. The same teacher who did not know where to put pen drive, or the same teacher who did, was trembling around for technology, because technology is good, but it's bad as well. Look what happened to me in the middle of conversation. Had I known a little bit, I wouldn't know this before COVID, how to switch on from one device to the other, and stuff like that. So now the teachers in the month of March, I would say March ending with the shocker, April, May, June, has taught us such lessons of life that I think it's very difficult to forget them. And for the kids, let me tell you, the kids have evolved over this, and they have taken it very easily, very, very easily. There is no problem with the kids. There is problem with the ones who are delivering it. Let me tell you that very bluntly and frankly. And also, let me tell you that though the kids have taken to it, the bigger kids now, I've also found out loopholes of how to misuse technology. So when a teacher is delivering a lesson, do you know what's happening? Some of them are all getting on to putting her off. Some of them are going off the screen. They generally, in the classroom, they put the screens off. All right. There's a new trend now with the kids, bigger kids particularly. They put the screens off, and then they do all kinds of things, And then the teacher has to yell at them and says, "Come back on the screen. I want to see you." These are the things. So as many new inventions, as many loopholes that the kids find technologically, to counteract that. Mischief can be of normal type. Nowadays, there's mischief of the technological type. I hope that answers your question.
Very well explained, ma'am. Very well. So, when you talked about paradigm shift, so there comes one more thing called assessment. So, I'll ask Mr. Shrikant, how will this technology and innovations help you assess the performance of the students, teachers, overall performance of the school? What are your views about it?
First of all, assessments itself, I am little against the routine mode of assessments. Assessment should be given to the educator to understand the learning outcome is achieved and not to grade the children. And thanks to technology, I mean, as most of the schools out there, we have been using technology in conducting the assessments now and then. But now with the present condition, we have even conducted our, of course, the so-called timetabled FA1. But still, yes, we have got to understand a lot of new applications that would assist us in doing the assessments. So from the point of technology, assessments, I mean, the way that we assess the child has totally changed. And I think this would continue because with this period of COVID, as I told earlier, so all the usage of the digitalization and other things have come little earlier than probably what we would have seen 5 to 10 years down the lane. And, you know, I have probably met and listened to more educationists in the last 4 months through these webinars than what I probably met or listened in the previous 4 years. So even the meeting and being on this panel, sitting in my place instead of flying to the Bangalore or Mumbai, the other conferences in the past of the ELETs. So of course, we miss seeing certain new products and companies that would be showcased. We keep changing our backgrounds. And as ma'am has just told, the mischief has increased technologically. Yes, the assessments, when we talk about assessments, we are also asking them to, asking the parents to proctor. At the same time, we are also teaching them to be more honest, staying at their houses. That's one more important life skill. I mean, basically, when I was pursuing my master's in University of South Florida, we used to have the open book exams. That was the first thing, I mean, which I never was exposed to while doing my undergraduate here. So the assessments, the technology, I would tell that it would definitely help doing the assessments and also giving adaptive assessments to the children. Because if it's a pen and paper based test, we always give the same kind of question and answer in the same order, more or less, right? So now with technology and the applications that we have at our hands, so we can actually give assessments, differentiated assessments, just like the differentiated instruction to the students also. And so this is good thing. I mean, I always feel that it's a wonderful opportunity due to the COVID that we have started utilizing more and more technology. And parents and students, students, they are digital natives. I mean, we are adaptive citizens of this digital world. And the present day school going students, they are the digital citizens, right? So they know a better netiquette is what there are certain new terms, right? The digital citizens, the netiquette, all these things. They know more than us, but at the same time, as educators, we need to teach them and how to rightly utilize that, how not to misutilize the options that are there. And through the formal assessments that we conduct and the home assignments that we give online. So it is definitely an advantage for the whole community, for the whole education industry.
Yes, definitely. Technology has helped in all ways, but it has its own pros and cons. So,
can I butt in a little bit with your permission?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, please.
I am just adding on to what Mr. Shrikant said. Very, very well said. You know, assessments nowadays have changed its essence and form under this tech era now, and it's easy now, you know, to get into objective mode. We used to earlier be very subjective, make them write tons and tons of lines, and then, you know, and then achieve something which was as good as. Now it's objective. Now it can be used with a lot of tech tools which are available. I think Dr. Sarda was saying earlier, when she said in opening remarks, a lot of names for who can this and that, Ment Media and stuff like that. I will not name all that, but there are tools now where you can actually assess the kids or the bigger kids of whichever generation, and very successfully, with little effort by the teacher, and then they can collate those assessments and give a very accurate feedback. But all said and done, I would just add on to one thing which Mrs. Srikanth said. Very nice to have assessments, yeah, but somehow with the NEP, we are glad that NEP has brought in a lot of thinking. It's not going to be now, I tell a question and you answer that question. What is this? This is that. Assessments now will be of 360 degrees. You know, something which assesses the child from all the angles around the child. And imagine that kind of assessment. What a beautiful assessment it's going to be. From the parents, from the teachers, from the environment, from dramatics to theater to role play. Writing is just 1% of the whole thing. Writing is not everything. And that we were grown up in an era where writing was everything. But now it's not only writing, it's speaking, it's behaving with other kids is an assessment by itself. So these are all something which I wanted to add to Mrs. Srikanth. Sorry for butting in.
Yeah, writing has become an art, madam. Writing is just like calligraphy and other forms of art.
Yeah,
so keyboarding has become a kind of writing that we were subjected to in our school days.
Correct, correct. And our life depended on all the written matter. But now it's beyond writing now, you know. Yeah, sorry, over to you, Arpit.
Thank you. So technology has definitely brought classroom beyond boundaries now. So I'll ask one question to Dr. Sarada now. What are your views about assessment that Mr. Srikanth and Anjali Madam said? In addition to assessment, I would also like to ask one thing, that classroom teaching is possible through online technology and the tools, apps which are available. But what about the extracurricular activities?
Yeah.
Over to you.
Really, I loved this question. First of all, I would like to really say thanks to Shanti ma'am and the other Anjali ma'am, and I didn't get his name, from Kennedy School. Thank you so much. You have put in a lot of inputs. And first thing I'll tell you, that this is like asking the question like Snowdrop and Seven Dwarfs, the mirror, mirror on the wall, which is the best of all, or who is the prettiest of all? Now we are asking that screen on the wall, which is the best of all. You just have to blink. You have got 200 assessment tools online available, number one. And again, we have to go back to this, as Anjali Rajdan ma'am said, and even sir said, that what is it we are assessing for is the major question we need to ask ourselves. It is assessment of, for, and as learning. So if it is only looking at how much has the child learned and what is the gap, and to find the gap and fill in the gap, then there are multiple ways of assessing, number one. Number two is that when this assessments, when we are taking it up, that completely there is a mistrust happens that the child is at home. Okay, and the child is doing the other side of the screen and we are on the side of the screen. And there is a natural instinct of the elders to always peep from the shoulder of the child to see what the child is doing. And normally in the school also, when you see, when invigilation is happening, whether the teacher, even if the teacher doesn't help, she will peep into the paper, what is the child doing? And here the parent peeps in. Now, as a parent, this will become a natural instinct if the child doesn't mark the right answer, to show it at least on the face. So this is what was the teacher's problem initially. I'm not talking now, I'm saying initially, whenever the assessment question came, the big question marks came. How can this happen? Because there is a parent there, the parent may help, and all those. And parents also, we are all human beings too. Then we all evolved. We all came to a consensus. What is it we are doing actually? We are only to see whether the child learned or not. Whether I am doing as a teacher, you are doing as a parent, it is ultimately this. The moment this consensus came, the tools came into their place. I used multiple tools, and even today we are into multiple tools, plus we are using assessed for this kind of assessments. But what made us understand that the child has learned is not these tools. The evolving of the child from a classroom learner, physical learner, to a virtual learner, and the evolving of the teacher from a physical teacher to a virtual teacher. We all have seen, and how comfortably that happened, how beautifully that happened, and how the teachers started using multiple tools, how the child started lapping it up. how the child and the teacher collaborated in learning from each other. If the teacher could not do it, is the child who told the teacher, ma'am, you can press your left side button, your right side button, this will happen. You can create that. No, the teacher did not take it seriously. Teacher lapped it up. Yeah, give me a little more. So what I'm saying is that the learning went on, and this learning made the teacher comfortable, the student comfortable, that we are actually partners in learning came. When this partners in learning came, assessments automatically happened, but the co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities came into picture, because the teacher started feeling that how can I actually take my class only into whatever that learning of content? Let me transform this into a most enjoyable class. So if I'm teaching my child about something like a counting, can I make the child do a little bit of a dribbling of a ball? Yeah. Can I make the child use the entire psychomotor skills so that, the entire gross motor skills in learning? And can I really attend to both the affective and psychomotor skills apart from cognitive skills? Multiple activities popped in. You know, today, if you go to any of the schools' Facebooks, you see the multiple activities the children are doing, and the way they are evolving, the way they are doing multiple things. They are singing, they are dancing, they are creating songs, they are thanking teachers, and they are using the chat box. Yeah, as Anjali ma'am said, they are also misusing it sometimes. They get into a lot of bullying there. They get into even questioning each other, or suddenly they switch off their video, audio, and they will say that my video and audio are not working. Whenever the teacher questions, it will not work. So we also found our own ways of correcting it. We will write a mail to parent saying that looks like there is a problem with your system. Your child's video and audio are not working whenever the teacher is questioning. So the parent assures that everything works in time. So we have become actual partners in learning. And today, the child is learning through singing. The child is learning through role play, because there is no fear of stage here. The child is in the most comfortable background, their own home, his or her own home. And there is no one to judge the child there. He is just doing it he or she doing before the screen. So it's like I practice standing in front of the mirror. The child is practicing in front of this particular screen, and the child does it beautifully. And automatically the extracurricular activities, co-curricular activities got mixed up with this learning, and the learning became most enjoyable. I'm only waiting for this to transform into physical classes as well. So thank you very much. This is what is my answer for your question.
Thank you, Dr. Sharada. So, Madam Meghna, the same question about the assessment. One more thing about the digital literacy. When we are talking about implementing innovations, bringing a revolution to digital education, so there comes digital literacy. So what has been your experience with your teachers and students to make them digitally literate?
Thank you. That's a good question. So this is our journey in our school. So I never realized that there would be a pandemic in the month of March, but we wanted to completely go digital for this academic year in the school. So that decision was taken sometime in November. So how do I do it is like, we wanted to do this on phase wise. So in December, we got all Chromebooks for all our teachers, and then we gave them off. And then we started something called digital citizenship. So we wanted children, even though we say that they are digital native children, like, the entire Generation Y and Generation Z students are digital native. They might not know how to be, a proper digital citizen as well. It's the duty of us to help them understand how can they utilize that particular space. Because until unless you don't give them the nitty-gritty of how you can utilize this particular space in a very ethical way, very, very important for this digital citizenship. Because if they don't know that is wrong, they'll end up doing those things. And then they say, oh, I did not know it was wrong. So that they just play that ignorance card, saying that, oh, nobody told me that I can do this and I can't do something like this. So this is how we started off. And then it was equally important that I empower teachers as well. So we did all these sessions for the teachers initially. We helped them to understand, like, how do they go about and all of that. And we have done all these in phases. And then we involved our parents as well, because, this TikTok videos were going, all over the place, where the children were doing some videos and all of that. And then we had parents complaining, saying that, I received calls because from somebody and all of that. Then we had to explain to the parents, like, how did they get hold of your personal information? Is through your personal, your presence online. So what kind of information are you going to put in online is equally important than just utilizing all that information also, is what I slowly started giving that inputs. Then I could make that into a team. So there are more teachers who joined in that entire process. There are a lot of parents from the technical background started, pitching in their information, saying that, yes, we have to take these information, we have to take these things one at a time. And then finally, when this pandemic had come, we were the first one. Even before pandemic, we stopped our school, because that was the time where we just finished our previous academic year, and then we're on a little break of trying to correct the and then give the progress cards. So when parents said that, I'm not very sure about, I don't know, I keep hearing a lot about coronavirus in different countries and all of that, let's also take a break for a week. So we actually were first one to close the school down. But I did get a lot of requests from the parents saying that, why can't we start an online school immediately? So we refuse, saying that, it's a pandemic. Let the children, let the parents, everybody absorb that information, saying that, yes, they can't go out. Yes, they can't. Their lives will be different. Their lives have changed. Let them adapt of staying at home. I even had some calls from, certain parents saying that, I am so tired looking at my child 14, 18, 24 hours in a day in the house. I understand, because nobody were, we did not plan for this. Right. So, yes, it has become difficult for some parents, I understand. So, but then we introduced this stage-wise. Only until April sometime, we did not start online school, because all I would do is, I would ask parents to help children learn those things they always wanted their children to learn during this pandemic. Helping in the house, being part of the household chores, or trying to learn some, life skills, and all these things came into picture. And when you introduce these things, phase wise, we have something called breezers, the break time. After every 30 minutes, they'll have a 5 to 10 minutes where the teachers will make children talk. Will help that, try and have that emotional connect also going on. So this did not stop. And then we went on with assessments in a way that we wanted to make sure. See, I've seen children who, as ma'am was mentioning, there were children who were worried to talk in front of the class in a physical space, opened up during this, online classes, and they felt so empowered. They felt so inclusive of the rest of the class, and they started showcasing such beautiful results. So all this learning, this empowered not just the students, but also all our teachers. So here, learning has become common to both the student community and also the teacher community, because teachers are also started learning, how to use different tools from the children as well. So that ego is not there anymore between the teacher and the student. So they became partners now in learning. When it comes to assessments, we also had all these questions what would be the integrity of the child or the parent when they're actually taking this assessments and all of that. But when we actually did a session with the children saying that, why do we take an assessment? It's just to understand where your learning is all about. So it doesn't change anything, how well or how well not you would do it. But we want you to do it with your own, abilities. We don't want you to take help. Let's see where can you reach without taking help. So we prepared our children in this way, and we asked parents yes, you can, but we included this little tool. Yes, there is no writing now. So a lot of children have come up with flying colors in their FA1 online assessments, but we also introduced a session where they can record the answer and send it to us. It doesn't have to be writing as long as the child is able to express what is the answer about. And this doesn't have to be the question and the answer. It is about their views. It's about their learning. It's about whatever they think. So suddenly the child felt empowered that, whatever I say, whatever I think is important. It's not what is written in the textbook. It is not what my teacher is saying. So my inputs are equally important in this society. So this is how they started empowering themselves. They started doing a little bit of more research on before they even speak about certain topics and all. So this empowered our children in a greater extent, and it has become easier for our teachers also, because yes, they had to struggle. Previously they used to do a lot of manual work after the exam for the corrections. Now they're doing the same work before the while they're coming up with the question paper. So they've coming up with such innovative ways to check how well the children are adapting to this, how well they're able to enjoy this entire teaching learning process. So when it is coming to extracurricular activities and all, we took them all online. Now singing classes happen online, dance classes happen online. Extracurricular activities for them could be something to do with robotics, Kriya, many more digital, on the digital front, there are many more activities that they can choose as extracurricular activities, which doesn't have to be part of the curriculum. So all these things actually empowered our children. But yes, as ma'am was mentioning, that socio-emotional touch in the physical environment is something even today, or I see on almost every day, one or the other student questioning, when can I come to school? When can I see you physically? So that would always be a craving from the child's side and even from the teacher's side, definitely, no doubt about it. But this is how we took it on a step by step. So initially we only had 1 hour school, and then later on we increased it to 2 hour school, and then we started giving projects which are more relevant for them, for their life skills improvement. And then we now run an entire full-fledged school online, like a proper online school, but for every half an hour they have a little break, and then so that they don't have to really stress them in sitting in front of the system throughout the day. So this is how we've taken up. And I'm sure, as ma'am was mentioning, there are so many things that are available online, but as a teacher, she will know, or he will understand, out of which is going to be useful for his or her students, which will help them learn. So definitely there is more learning for the teachers, and that because these teachers know them personally, they know which would be more applicable to their students for that particular process of learning. So this is how we moved into digital space completely online, even though our school went online paper free about 10 years ago, and we started using a lot of Google tools and all of that. But this transition did not tax my teachers so much, because they're so used to a lot of things already. So it was a little not so bad transition for them, for sure, because we would make sure that everybody who's joining into the school will learn this process. So one day, if we had to, we would be able to take this up. So this helped. But I can see majority of the schools who did not have this kind of an exposure, as Anjali ma'am was mentioning, it is not like switching on the television and then watching, or digital board and watching, both of them watching at the same time. That is not usage of technology. That is introduction of technology. So we evolved from introduction of technology to usage to innovations currently. Teachers are coming up with many new products, and how that would help their children to learn, or their students to learn better. There are a lot of digital spaces where they have a requirement of teachers who will be able to understand from the child's perspective side, how their project or the product is going to help many number of students. So this is opened up so many more opportunities and windows for many of the teachers who are there, who are ready to adapt. Definitely for those who have that little jijak of, or that friction of the change, they also started changing, and they feel empowered now. That rigidity is gone, I can say. They feel a lot empowered, and they say greatest example is Anjali ma'am, who's able to switch between two computers within a span of few seconds, Awesome, ma'am. Awesome. Thank you.
Technology comes with its own advantages and disadvantages. We are almost at the end of this panel discussion, but I'm left with 5 minutes and we have 5 panelists. So closing remark for 1 minute by each speaker. So I'll come to you one by one. So I'll ask for closing remarks by Shanti ma'am. Over to you.
Essentially, I would think that as a closing remark, technology is a boon in part for the teaching faculty and for the learner. Definitely needs to be part of the whole transaction because there are huge number of advantages for that. Especially in terms of assessments, in terms of preparations, in terms of feedback, like I started off with. Also in terms of communication with parents, because it's very quick when we use technology. The add-on, the enrichment of learning is very high because of technology. Today, children are visiting Paris, or they're watching the insides of a leaf, which would have never been possible in real life, right? Or they're dissecting. Today, dissections are not allowed, but you're dissecting a frog online. So the enrichment of their learning experiences has increased a whole lot. So technology is here to stay. The better we adopt it and adapt to it is the best. I would think that use it prudently without losing that emotional connect with the student, because at the end of it, we're talking of a human being, a child who's not to be molded, but somebody we're trying to unfold, okay? Trying to explore the child's being. So if we allow technology to come between that and the child's evolving as a human being, we are doing a disastrous thing. But otherwise, using technology to aid a child's exploring his own self, in his own growth, is a superb mode to go in. So I would think technology is a partner to be with you, but like Meghna said right at the outset, cannot replace a human being, which is the teacher. Thank you so much for having me on this panel.
Thank you, Shanti ma'am. Anjali ma'am, 60 seconds.
This shall pass. The world will go on. We'll learn better. Let's be positive. Post-COVID is going to be a wonderful time. We are dying to have the kids and everybody come, have a human touch. But whatever it is there, post-COVID is going to be a wonderful, wonderful time because it's got a lot of inputs from what we learned in COVID times. So thank you, COVID, for giving us this wonderful opportunity. 60 seconds.
Mr. Srikanth, your views.
Yeah.
Closing remarks.
My view is also just like the other two people. So technology is going to stay and usage and dependency is only going to increase. So how we are going to continue, how we are going to utilize it to the best of the possibilities is what we have to do. Because even after we open physically, the hybrid learning and blended learning is going to stay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. I'll come to Dr. Sharda for the last remark. I'm going to Meghna ma'am for a closing remark.
Okay.
60 seconds.
Me or Meghna ma'am? Okay.
Meghna ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Arpit, and all the panelists today. It's an amazing experience to share these ideas and giving this opportunity. As every other thing, even digital technology also has its own pros and cons. But as teachers, we always emerged successful in trying to handle the cons because it's just new. We are taking our own time. How do we handle these, mischiefs from the students? Because that will also empower us. How do we? Because even in physical environment, we face these kind of mischief from children, but in a different way, definitely. So I feel that, yes, we will be definitely highly empowered when we come back post-COVID because, as it has taught a lot. So we look forward to more enriching experiences in teaching and learning environments and definitely more humane to each other now that, we miss so much of that social environment around us. So, yeah. Thank you so much. And yes, technology and innovation will be a constant changing process from here on.
Dr. Sada, over to you. Which one is better, online or traditional?
I'll just tell with one story and conclude. Okay. It seems once upon a time there was a king And this king had 3 daughters. He took care of his daughters so well. He loved them a lot. And on his birthday, he asked each daughter that, how much do you love me? So one daughter said, I love you as much as my jewels. The other one said all materialistic things. But the third one said, I love you as much as the salt in the food. So he was very upset. So he threw her out of the kingdom. He said that put her in a jungle. She was sent away. After some time, this king went to the jungle and got lost. So he reached this daughter's house. So daughter immediately cooked food and served him. And when he started eating, there was no salt. So he was very upset. I'm so hungry, and do you give me food without salt? What kind of a joke is it? And she asked heavily, did you see how important salt is to the food? You are that important to me, I said. Now technology is that much important to us. Too much will lead us to imbalance of sodium. Too less also will lead us to sodium imbalance. We'll become berserk. So we need to have the right amount of salt in our food. We need to have the right amount of technology in our life today. For the new norm, technology is the tool. Right amount will actually make us fly. Otherwise, we will be where we are. We will become the history, and somebody else will write our history. Thank you very much.
Thank you all the panelists. So I think the crux is technology is needed everywhere, but it is not the oxygen. So we cannot compare it with the oxygen. So yes, we have to live with it. We have to adopt it. And when we are moving on the new normal due to the pandemic that happens sometime in a century, so we have to adopt certain changes, and that is technology. And with the use of technology, it is possible only that panelists from different part of the country are sitting at their home, and we are present on a virtual screen and discussing about the challenges and opportunities. So with this, thank you. I would like to thank all the panelists of this session. And this was a very wonderful discussion on tackling the innovation in the virtual revolution of education to engage students. So thank you, Dr. Sharada Chandrasekharan, Madam Shanti Menon, Madam Meghna Musnuri, Madam Anjali Razdan, and Mr. Srikanth B. Koganati. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.